Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Across Europe, the Trump Putin summit has sparked divisions, from Germany's cautious approval to Central Europe's skepticism and the Baltic states urging stronger guarantees for Ukraine. As the EU weighs its next steps, sanctions, security commitments, and political unity, the big question is whether Europe can stay aligned in the face of Kremlin pressure. Now, to break it all down for us, we're joined now by Professor Zbigniew Lewicki, Professor of American Studies, the Cardinal Stefan Wyszyński University in Warsaw. Hello, good to have you with us, Professor. Welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
I want to begin with your assessment professionally, looking at what happened after the summit, the Alaska meeting. According to Prime Minister Orban, the world is now a safer place. Did the summit achieve something considerable, or is this playing more into the hands of Putin? How do you see it?
Well, it's a very good question. Everybody tries to answer the question now, and it's unclear what really went on during the meeting. Without us knowing what went on, who said what, it's very difficult to assess whether it was a success or a failure. One thing which is obvious is that there won't be any ceasefire announced in Ukraine, which I think makes sense because from the Russian point of view, ceasefire was in favor of Ukraine, not of Russia. So instead of ceasefire, they are now working on permanent peace. And I think there are reasonably good chances that those will be achieved. The condition, however, is that Ukraine and Russia agree on the territorial question. And that's a stumbling block because I think Moscow and Kiev are very far apart as to where the final border between the two countries should be.
Mm-hmm. I want to follow up what you said. You said it makes sense that there's no ceasefire, as that would play too much in the hands of Ukraine. However, if we're looking at the common European position and also Ukraine, that was always the first objective, have a ceasefire. That's changed now. So in effect, we're playing more into Putin's hands here. So why the change in strategy, and does this put Donald Trump against the Europeans in a way?
I don't know. I mean, it was, of course, Ukraine and many European countries wanted to have ceasefire because Ukraine could rearm during ceasefire, could rearrange her forces, and so on and so on. So Putin obviously understands that, and that's why the ceasefire idea was dead on arrival, if I can use the phrase. Now, European, we all use the term European, but I'm not quite certain whether there is a uniform European point of view. Of course, Hungary is a country apart, but even without Hungary, so far, I don't think we heard much from Southern Europe, and of course, they have a voice as well, and the cost of it. One thing is Poland and maybe Baltic countries, which are in the face of present danger, and we are willing and ready to pay what it takes. But other European countries far away from Ukraine may hesitate to spend money on the war. And I think we have to make sure that we Europeans speak in one voice before we can actually become a full-fledged partner for both the US and Russia. That's always the European problem, that various countries have various objectives, various countries have various priorities, and what we think is the most important and pressing issue may not be for Italy or Greece or Spain, to name just these countries. So I think this has not been achieved so far, at least from what I can read in various reports. that while Hungary is the only country coming very strongly on the side of Russia, other countries seem to hesitate what course of action to take.
You're saying, you bring up an interesting point about southern European countries, but at the same time, you say they hesitate, but I remember not that long ago, the Portuguese foreign minister very much has said that, that hybrid warfare is also a danger to NATO as a whole, and looking at the Atlantic and looking at it, that it is also in danger of such hybrid attacks. So I think hesitation is not necessarily the word I would choose, but I want to come back on one of your points. You said territorial concessions could be a stumbling block. I mean, that's, I think, very diplomatic phrasing. We have also reportedly from Putin that he would like the entirety of the Donbass, which Russia controls 70% at the moment. How realistic is that kind of expectation, considering that President Zelensky has said, well, that will not be happening? How realistic is this, that this would be part of any kind of freeze, ceasefire, or peace agreement?
Again, it's a difficult question because it involves realistic thinking versus moral thinking. From the moral point of view, Russia should not gain anything from the war she started, and from the moral point of view, Russian soldiers should withdraw and all territory should return to Ukraine. Now, from a realistic point of view, this is not going to happen. There is no way that Russia would give up or resign its occupation or its of Crimea, and I think almost the same goes from entire Donbass, or at least 70 to 80% of it. We can talk about it, at length, but the final decision rests with Moscow. And I cannot see how Putin, for reasons internal as well as external, would say, okay, guys, we are withdrawing, all this war, 3 years of fighting was for nothing. We'll go back to our former borders and let Donbass be Ukrainian. I simply cannot imagine Putin taking that stand, and without him agreeing to what is Ukrainian condition, I don't think the two sides can come together. We have to recognize the relative power of Russia, of a major power, military power, all kinds of power, which is, of course, larger than Ukraine's. So even the heroism of Ukrainian soldiers cannot really outweigh various advantages of Russia. And much as, I hate to say it, but I don't see any reason for which Putin would simply give up what his soldiers conquered and would go along Ukrainian wishes.
But, I mean, you're saying that but the classic argument here, might makes right. I mean, this is the whole tricky situation, is that with those territories that were illegally taken by Russia, I mean, Crimea is also very much a difficult one to assess. But nevertheless, I mean, at some point you said the final answer rests in Moscow, but surely the United States role in all this, that's why it's so critical. But then I'm just curious as to how you see this work out. I mean, if Moscow dictates policy here, what's the sense of these summits? What's the sense of the European statements? Is it all in Vladimir Putin's decision? That doesn't seem necessarily accurate, I think.
Well, the way you phrase it, it really sounds very drastic. But at the same time, as I said before, it is realistic. Whatever efforts Europe makes, whatever efforts Trump makes, and of course his intentions are not as clear as European intentions, if Putin decides that he cannot go along and he cannot withdraw his forces, he will not do it. And I'm not saying that it's only the question of conquering the land. It's also the question of people around Putin, of his military people. I'm sure they would make an argument saying, we didn't fight for 3 years for nothing. We didn't lose so many people, so much equipment, and so on for nothing. It should happen. Yes, I agree with you. But will it happen? I just cannot imagine that kind of decision taken by Putin. If it means that everything depends on Putin, in a way it does. Of course, Trump can play the sanctions card, but he doesn't seem to be willing to do it. We know that he threatens to use sanctions, but he doesn't quite announce them. Maybe he will, but this will only make the situation more difficult. Putin is not a politician, from what we know, who would bow to pressure. He is rather a politician who has to be approached very, very cautiously and with full respect. If you say, if you don't do it, we'll punish you, this will probably have an adverse effect on him. So I'm not very optimistic at the 2, 3, or 4 sides coming to the same decision.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as you painted there, we still have a long way to go, and it seems very much that your view is going to complicate all this. It's going to be very complicated in general, but we'll see what happens at that critical summit tomorrow with President Zelensky when he meets Donald Trump. Look, we'll close it there. Thank you so much, Professor Zbigniew Lewicki there. Appreciate your insights today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks, but stay tuned, much more coming up right here on TVP World. Goodbye.